Just a second, but Luke Tryl is here with me now, UK Director of More in Common. It's a think tank that aims to strengthen democratic societies by countering social division and polarisation. So let's do our bit by having a conversation with him about Liz Truss, soon to be our next Prime Minister, and we know that she is going to be our next Prime Minister. Thanks for joining me today, Luke. Thanks for coming on. So you've known her since you were a teenager, is that right?
I have, for my sins. I was sort of keen, young Conservative campaigner back in the day in Yorkshire, and she was the candidate for my home seat. So met her age 17, actually, and known her kind of on and off ever since.
What's she like?
She is, I think, with Liz, she's a very straightforward person. And I actually think that's going to be one of the things which people find is quite a difference from previous politicians. She says what she thinks, she has her beliefs and she goes out of her way to get them done. So I don't think one of people's complaints about politicians is always telling you one thing and then doing another. She genuinely says what she means.
But she has changed her views, hasn't she, over time? And some of the things she was saying in this campaign, say about cutting taxes, governing as a Conservative in that speech she just gave there, they're clearly sending very deliberate political messages, and they may well be backed up. I don't doubt that they're backed up by beliefs. How does she cope with practical realities that bump into her beliefs?
Well, I think, and I think she explained this best in one of the debates. Liz didn't come from, one of these backgrounds where, people debate politics in school every day. I think her views have formed over time. They've changed over time. And actually, I think in that way, she's a lot more like the British public. Most of the public, and we do lots of focus groups, think it's quite weird that someone would stick with the same set of beliefs all throughout their lives, that actually they don't change and evolve, particularly as they grow up. But certainly since I've known her, she's long been a believer, but that core Conservative principle is about allowing people to keep as much of their own money as they can do, that's good for them, but also good for the country as a whole. So I think, you have throughout this campaign seen the real Liz Truss. The other side of her, which I hope more people get to see now that she's Prime Minister and, is in the spotlight more, is, she's also, she's a very funny person. She's got a great sense of humour. She makes people laugh. She doesn't take everything hyper seriously, which I think is important in a politician. And she's also a very kind person. Certainly with me, when I first met her, I was starting out in politics, and she acted as a sort of mentor and gave me advice. So, I think there's
right. So even though she was the candidate, she didn't stay loftily separate from the younger members of the team, and no.
Not at all. No. She very much kind of, mucked in, and, when we would, we'd go to the pub after we'd been leafleting, she'd be
What's
there.
What's her favourite drink, Luke? Does she have a favourite drink?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you.
I reckon she's a vodka and orange woman. What's your best hope from her, for her time as Prime Minister? However long it lasts.
I think the most important thing, I think actually this was summed up, it's not my words, but we did a focus group in Doncaster last week, and I asked the group, what advice would you give to the new Prime Minister? And a woman, I think she just summed it up perfectly. She just needs to convince people that they don't have to be scared about what's coming round the corner this winter. And I think, if over the next week or so, when she announces that package of support, which we know is coming, if she can provide that reassurance that, we all know things are going to be difficult, it's going to be a tricky time, but you don't have to be worried about opening your energy bill.
Right.
That will go a long way.
So you're talking there about both the content of the policy, as in the financial backing that means you're not going to have to pay massive bills, but you're talking about the human touch that she needs to provide that as well.
She needs to be able to communicate that message to people, that she gets it and understands it. And actually, again, during the leadership race, when she said things like, look, I'm not the slickest candidate, that went down very well with people, because they were like, well, I'm not that slick. I don't spend my time doing these debates. Most people aren't that polished. So I think that side of her, which perhaps some Westminster commentators don't rate as much, actually goes down quite well with the public. And I think she will, therefore, provided the package...
But there are limits to that. I'm thinking about it as you say it to me, which is what I'm supposed to do. There are limits to that, aren't there? Because equally, you don't want... you want competence. You wouldn't want me presenting this programme with my back to you, too shy to speak to you. You know what I mean? It's you need competence as well as a kind of naturalness that you're talking about there in her.
Completely, but I think it's really important that what the public aren't looking for from the new Prime Minister, and we now know it's Liz, is a Blair 2.0. That was really clear in the focus groups that we did all over the summer. Actually, they were looking for someone who was kind of straightforwardly competent, and I think that's what she demonstrated. Yeah, I mean, she doesn't have the sort of polish that Rishi Sunak showed throughout the debate, but that's not the same as making you the best PM or making you, you being able to project that you get it.
And she certainly has the cabinet experience, doesn't she, that could give people some
completely. I mean, she's been in the cabinet now since 2014, which I think actually is more cabinet experience than almost all of our recent prime ministers. Certainly more than Boris had, I think more than Theresa had, more than Cameron had, probably going back to Edward Heath, actually. So, she's got that experience. She's got that ability to sort of tell it like it is. And I think that will be what resonates with the public.
Given the work you do in trying to counter social division and polarisation, and full support to you in those aims, what about within the parliamentary party? Because it's a different... I mean, human beings are human beings, so that, that there'll be some common ground there. But politics is a tough game. Conservative parliamentary politics is a very tough game indeed. She didn't have a great deal of backing from MPs to start with. She didn't get a completely resounding win today. A win, 10,000 victory there or thereabouts. How does she bring the party together after what happened to Boris Johnson? Because there are those who still feel it was a fratricide, don't they?
Completely. But I think what you've got to remember, and, in a previous life I was a Conservative special advisor, is that what Conservatives in particular are always laser focused on is winning. They desperately want to win the next general election. They like to be in power. And I think if through, again, the support package, getting through the winter, and then what comes next, getting out the other side of it, Liz shows that she is a winner, that she's won over the public. I actually think people will stop talking about, how many MPs votes people got, what the margin of victory was.
But do you think, because she's got two groups to connect with, hasn't she, here, and to build bridges with? One is those perhaps quizzical MPs who might not be convinced yet, her own MPs. But the other is the public. The public are going to need to connect with her, aren't they?
Completely. But I think, as I was saying, I think they will connect through the doing. The number one thing, I mean, I can't stress this enough, you can't do a focus group at the moment without people talking about how concerned they are about the winter. I don't know, your callers.
They want action. They want
action. So it's going to be about, what's so interesting is, the public, they haven't been following who did what interview during the campaign. They haven't actually been focusing that closely. I did a focus group in Stoke, and just one person of 9 had actually watched any of the debates. So for lots of people, this will actually be their introduction to her. And so what she does in terms of the action going forward is going to be far more important than any of the numbers and stats and things that have come before.
And focusing on the democratic element of what you do, as a Conservative, do you understand why so many people look at the size of this particular electorate and the sheer power that it has in this country? It doesn't quite sit right with a lot of people. I know it's within the rules, and I know that when we vote in a general election, we don't vote for a particular prime minister, not strictly speaking anyway. But do you understand that discomfort? Is it worth a look again at these rules, that if you depose a sitting prime minister, that there has to be a different way of choosing the next, maybe a general election?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that we've done the series of focus groups over the summer with the public is we felt actually it's really quite important that people hear what ordinary people think, not just the 300 or so Conservative MPs and 200,000.
Not the weirdos who join political parties.
Yeah. No. There was really, it is important to know what people think.
Of course it is.
And to find out what they wanted and what those priorities were, and perhaps where they were different from what MPs and members wanted as well. I think on the general election, but you've got to balance it with the fact that the other thing you'll often get from focus groups is that people are just quite sick of politics. They feel like we've lurched from Brexit to COVID to Partygate to cost of living. Actually, they just want politicians to get on with the job.
They want living. They want living.
Yeah. They want living. I don't think we'd be thanked for pushing for another general election at this stage.
Luke, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Luke Tryl, UK Director of More in Common. It's 3:46.